Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Between Tides podcast. I'm Allison, and we're so glad that you can be with us today. Whether you're a certified fan or it's your first time joining us, the goal of our podcast is actually pretty simple. We hope to educate, encourage, and inspire our audience to become just a little smarter, maybe even a little healthier after listening to each episode. And today, this is really fun because there are 4 of us here joining you. Parenting.
Let's do it.
I mean, parenting affects all of us, right? Because we at least have parents, even if we're not parents.
Right.
And for the 4 of us, we're at different stages of that life journey.
I have 0 kids.
All right.
So you're pre-parenting.
I'm yeah,
maybe.
It's going great.
You're pet parenting.
Nailing it.
Yeah, my 2 dogs.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Go ahead, Erin. I feel like we should do it in order.
Oh, in order?
Yeah.
I'm a parent. It's weird to say I'm a parent of a 7-month-old boy.
All right. I guess I'm next in line. So I have 2 amazing boys that are elementary school age, 3rd and 5th grade.
Yeah,
That's good
almost to
years.
middle school.
Yep.
I have 4 children who are they're basically all out on their own. They're college age, young adult, to early married, and I'm also a grandparent. So I'm seeing the cycle repeat in our own family, which is kind of fun and scary.
And
Which-
a
yeah.
new and different way of parenting also.
It is, yes, it's definitely new. But yeah, it's lots of fun too.
Which phase was your favorite with all of your kids?
I was thinking about this on the way here, actually. There are things about every phase that I have really, really enjoyed. And there are things about every stage that were hard. I'm really loving this stage, but there are still hard things about this stage too, because now I have to sit back as a parent and watch my kids navigate some of the same challenges that I navigated at their age. And I also know what's ahead or what could be ahead. And so I have to really, almost like I censor myself a lot because I want them to get to experience the things as they happen rather than me saying, well, this is going to happen and you have to prepare for this. And have you thought of that? And if you plan, I can't overparent, I have to just rein myself in. Also, because I have a little bit of anxiety. So I don't want to speak from that.
Is this
No.
how you're gonna-
I love the babyhood though. Babyhood. Oh,
Yeah. Now, is there any part of you as a parent and now a grandparent that's like, well, I went through it and had to figure it out. So I'm not going to give you the answer yet. Like, you'll have to do it.
that's
yes.
good.
Okay.
With what things?
So, so one of our sons is he's married with 2 kids, and then we have a daughter who's married with no kids. And so for the son who's married with kids, part of maturing is overcoming challenges. If life is too easy at any stage, I feel like you just don't learn to navigate on your own and be independent. And so with them, we're available. My husband and I are very available. For instance, with our son, their washing machine broke last week, and so they have a brand new infant and a toddler. They have a lot of laundry, so they came over a couple different times to do laundry. Obviously, I'm not going to be like, nope, you're on your own. You better go to a laundromat and pay $10 a load. I'm not going to do that.
That's a whole other experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm also not going to solve every problem. You need to, have you tried working on it? Have you tried, Chad's available. He can go over and help you try to fix something. We looked up a lot of YouTube videos. So it's that balance. I mean, that's kind of a silly example, but if they come to us with significant questions about, okay, so we're planning a budget. We've never done that before. What would you recommend? How would you recommend we navigate that? But we're not going to micromanage that. We're not going to say, okay, show me exactly what you have and exactly what you need to do. But we're going to more sort of give broad advice, maybe, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I feel like you do that at every stage, right?
Mhm.
I mean, not maybe with the baby stage. You are micromanaging the baby,
Yes.
I hope.
I am micromanaging right now. That's why I think my definition of parenting, like I always had it in my mind as more of like those bigger conversations when kids get older about like, like morals and things like that. I viewed that more as parenting rather than like the things I'm doing now, which feel like more like not survival, but almost since I'm like responsible for feeding and changing and things like that. But those decisions I make around those things like how to feed him and what to
Mhm.
feed him are parenting as well. So that's something that I've kind of taken and learned over the past couple months.
Yeah.
Absolutely is.
hmm
How was getting the car seat in the car right as you get to bring him
The
home from the hospital?
crazy that I'm just allowed to walk out with
right.
another
Yeah,
human.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a strange feeling. They're just
It
like,
is.
congrats, here you go.
Good luck.
Wow.
Like I remember, like yes, I'm one of those dorks. Like I read the manual to make sure I could actually install this car seat
Oh, yeah.
correctly, and like get everything in position. And I remember standing in the hospital room and like holding my son for the first time, not for that first day.
hmm
And I was looking out the window, and there's this poor dude just out there, like at his car, with like
Oh.
the car seat box, like scattered, like trying to figure it out.
Oh no.
And I was like, do I go out there and like help him? Just like this is how the clips, those kind of things. But you have to figure it out, right? And
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
do. I did go help him, by the way.
Oh, good for
that's
you.
nice of you. Yeah, I'm
No
sure he
offense, but
appreciated
what
that.
an idiot. Like,
Yeah.
you know there's a deadline for when the two of you are not just the two of you anymore. Like, there's a guest in the house for the rest of your lives, and you have at least 9 months to prepare. And then on that day when he comes, you're like, oh, now I think I'm going to get the car
Yeah.
seat ready.
That's where you try to be
That's
like
so
super
funny.
gracious, like maybe that she was
Oh,
early, maybe surprise
mhm.
delivery.
Man, you're right.
I don't
Okay, I
know.
take it back. He's not an idiot.
Listen, I once
Yeah.
had a coworker who told me when she got pregnant, she was pretty young and it was not expected, and she didn't have a partner, and she lived with her mom, and she hid the pregnancy for the entire pregnancy.
9 months?
And she thought she was having indigestion, and she realized, I think I might be in labor. She never went to a doctor.
You're joking.
I am not joking.
This is
I
a
might
whole
be
other
in
podcast.
labor.
This is a whole other podcast.
Right?
Bring in
She
Natalie.
went to the hospital and had the baby, and
Wow.
Did you hide the baby?
had to call her mom and be like, oh, I have some news. So maybe he was very surprised.
That's a good point. Sorry, I called him.
Yeah, that's another podcast. So there's that level of unpreparedness.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Not cool like
But you're in charge of keeping another human being alive.
Yeah.
And
So
it's awesome, but it's also terrifying.
yes. And there are just lots of choices you can make. And everything feels kind of like normal too. Like when I call the doctor, I'm like, this is happening. Like I have a lot of questions of like, do I need to be concerned or not
Yeah.
concerned?
Mm-hmm.
So that's been something that I've been like learning to gauge over the last few months too.
Sure.
Yeah. Have you relied on books at all, like either before the baby came or now? Do you?
Yeah, I listened to a lot of books like
Mhm.
while I was pregnant, and then they were helpful to listen to, I think, in the moment. And then some of them really did help. Like there was one about like how to soothe like a newborn infant that like really I did use a lot of things. But I think like the ones that are like the parenting books, I'm just gonna have to kind of revisit or find new ones like when I get to like that stage. Cause like even
Yeah.
stuff I listen to about like toddlers is stuff that's like totally left my mind for like making space for like the simple decision making that I'm doing now, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
You said you don't feel like you're really parenting right now. It more feels like survival.
Mm-hmm.
What mostly feels like parenting to you right now?
Like the
Like to your
choice to
baby?
like, I guess reading when we read, that feels like
Mm-hmm.
parenting. I guess like when I do things that are like not contributing to his like feeding
Like
His
survival.
basic, his basic
his
maintenance.
basic
Yeah.
net needs. Yeah, that
Maintenance.
feels like parenting, even though technically I don't want to like minimize like infant parenting because like infant parenting is a lot of just those small moments of like the diaper and feeding and stuff like that. But yeah, when I get to choose those other things outside of that and like give him experiential learning, like I don't know, like the silly things you can do with an infant, like where you can like give them sensory
Yeah.
moments that are like different. Like even just like when we're walking and I have him in a carrier, I'll like stop and let him touch like bushes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that feels like parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of like where I've been reflecting on like parenting moments.
That's
So it's
really
kind of like
cool.
intentional things, moments versus just the automatic stuff.
Yes.
Like, you don't have a choice. You have to change the diaper. And I mean, I guess you do have a choice, but a good parent
Yes.
Does not have a
intentionally
choice.
does not have a choice. You shouldn't have a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like past the feeding stuff and
Mhm.
everything. So that's been fun.
And that 7 months is such a fun stage because they're really aware and really engaging. And, you know, it's fun even earlier than that when they first start to turn their head toward you, even like as infants, they know their mom's voice, they know their dad's voice, they know the smell. And, you know, like with my newest grandson, he's only a couple weeks old. And so I'll be holding him and his mom will sit down next to me and say something. And immediately he turns and looks toward her. Yeah, he's very aware. It's just amazing to me.
It's been a while, but isn't it like they get an inch of vision for every week or so? Isn't that right?
I think that's like
Yeah.
around there, because then I think by the time they're like 3 months, their vision is like it's so markedly different from like when you bring them home.
Right. Yeah.
And but yeah, it's been really cool. Like, because even from across the room now, like he can see me and know that it's me. And so that, I mean, I just have been saying like after like 4 months, it's been like such a blast for like the smiles and the giggles and like that awareness that you were talking about of like just knowing who a person is.
Yeah.
Because he even had stranger danger the other week when my father-in-law came over and held him, and we were like, "It's your pap, like it's okay," but like he has a beard and he looks a lot different, and so he was like very upset and he was looking for Zach and I.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're his people.
Yeah.
I would say, but the baby smiles, like when they actually get the muscle
Oh,
tone,
yeah.
like when that kicked in,
The best.
I was like, oh, I'm screwed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like-
Anything they want.
You're
Just yeah.
it's adorable.
Yeah. What's been one thing that has utterly surprised you about parenting of this brand new stage? Or any of it, I guess.
I think just I didn't know that I would sleep through the night this soon.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Take
I
that.
like thought for sure it would be a lot more. We're not sleeping through the entire night, but
yeah,
I think maybe that. I feel like I should say something more profound.
No, I don't think it needs to be profound.
Sleep
is good.
Because I was expecting a very big change. So I was waiting for like my entire life to kind of turn upside down, and it did. I think that might be my biggest surprise. I don't know. I might come back to you with that one in the middle.
Well, it'll change too.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Probably. Did you and your husband talk about, like, are you intentional about trying to create routine and schedule for him? Like, did you try that from the beginning, or were you more like feeding on demand, or like what was your...
Yeah, we fed on demand because I was nursing. But then once we hit like 3 months, we wanted to try a schedule just because like the fourth, they call like the first 3 months the fourth trimester.
Oh.
So we started doing like the bath, even though like we didn't wash him every night. And then we read a book, and then like he gets it's not the best habit I would like to start, but he does get a bottle right before he goes to bed. So that was kind of like, that's our schedule right now, and it's been working. And so I guess maybe one thing that I was surprised about is just like how much change happens so quickly. Like even just like I had that schedule at 3 months, but now I'm like reconsidering it all the time. Like maybe we should change that. Like maybe I want to stop giving that bottle at right before bedtime so he doesn't have that expectation and things like that. So I think that was something I was like, because once you get a good thing going, you're like, but I don't want to stop. This is working.
Right. Yeah. Schedules are wonderful until you have to travel or
oh my gosh,
something. And then you're like, why did I stick to the schedule?
Yeah, like have those practice times where you break the schedule so you have like a place to go from when you're forced to change it.
Yeah.
Well, for you guys, what do you think has changed the most since you guys were parents versus what you're hearing about now?
Off the top of my head, one thing that's changed, and we actually touched on this way back in our nutrition podcast, is the guidance for food introduction. It is very different now. And I think it's much better now than it was when I was having babies. I don't know if it was like this when you guys were having babies.
I feel like we were right on the cusp of the change, because it used to be, wait until they were X number of months before you introduce this food and this food. And they were actually encouraging us to introduce it as soon as we wanted.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
Like
So
peanut butter and honey?
right. Yeah.
yeah. So when I had babies, they were
Once they were
telling us
eating solid
to,
foods.
yeah,
Yeah.
they were
Oh.
saying wait till they're 2 at least to
Wow.
introduce things like peanut butter and other potential food allergies. And I didn't, because that didn't make sense to me based on what I knew growing up and dealing with some allergies of my own, not food allergies, but other allergies. And my pediatrician actually was like, this is the recommendation. However, you know your child best. You know your own family history best. If you feel comfortable introducing it, it's okay. Here are just some things to be mindful of. But I probably waited till they were pretty close to 2 to introduce nuts.
Wow.
And now that's, yeah, like Jared said, it's totally different. And I think obviously it makes way more scientific sense to introduce it earlier.
Mhm.
But you actually have some pretty significant food allergies in your family.
Mhm.
So does that change your approach?
Yeah, I went to my pediatric allergist that I saw as a kid. And so we went and she did skin tests on the baby, and then we fed him peanuts in the office.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
Smart.
so that way, like if something were to happen,
That's really smart.
like that one, I felt like because that one's kind of the scariest out of
Yeah.
all of the allergens. So I felt good. Like we did the skin test and they all came back negative, and then they gave them the peanut butter, and then we stayed for an hour. So then it gave me the confidence to like go home and do the allergen introductions, and we have almost all of them except shellfish
Okay.
that I've
Oh.
done. So
That's going to be a
Yeah.
He
fun
hasn't had
night.
sushi yet.
What a
He has
clam.
not.
Yeah. Oh. Gotcha.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. That to me, that was like the pro tip with our pediatrician. They're like, if you're concerned about anything, just when they come for their wellness checkup, like give it to them in the office. If something happens, like we're all here.
I love that.
So
It's really
yeah, I just remember I
smart.
was like, peanut butter cracker, here you go.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any concerns, but he was like, oh,
I bet your
Yeah.
kids back then were like, oh my gosh, we're going to the doctor. What are we going to get now?
yeah. Unfortunately, no. It was
A cracker, maybe?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yep.
What about you two? What are some things that have surprised you in all the stages, or even like right now with your kids
Mhm.
or your grandkids?
the first thing that popped in my head was, I think, dumb, but I'll say it anyway. But when you mentioned reading to your kids,
Mhm.
I love like having the kids sit in my lap, like we're reading books. And, like when they're really young, they get kind of like the texture books. They all kind of crinkle and they make sounds. And then you get into like the little bit more advanced kids books. But like Dr. Seuss, I can't even say it now. He killed me. Because you're like, oh, it'll be a fun little book. And you're like, I can't say any of these words. So you just start making it up. But Redfish, Bluefish, no one tells you this book is like 85 pages long.
Right. And that's the one they picked before.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're
Exactly.
like, no.
And so now, like, do I give it out to gifts for every parent? Like, here, welcome to my suffering.
Yeah.
Here we go. But it's a really long book.
It's
I didn't
super
think
long.
it
All
was
of his
long as
books
a
are
kid.
long.
It's cute when they're young, as you could just, skip 20 pages and just keep going. And they get older and they're like, no, you skipped the page.
it.
Yes.
What's going on? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, created a monster. But so that was a surprise. That's one, how long kids' books can be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, but how quickly the kids will catch on that if you try to skip anything, they're on it.
Wow.
Didn't complete the story, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to know what happened. I don't know if the fish is red or blue. Go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
I'll get you a copy. Advanced
Yeah.
reading. Here we go.
Okay.
So if you're buying a baby gift for someone that you like, buy them nice, short, snappy books. But if it's someone maybe you don't care for so much, give them the Dr. Seuss books because they're super
Noted.
long. Yeah. Lots of things surprised me as a parent. Being at the place that we are now, I think what surprised me a little bit as a parent was I really had some pie in the sky expectations of, if I follow this formula, I do A, B, and C, and we do it consistently, then I can pretty much, this sounds so stupid, and it really is stupid, I can pretty much guarantee how my kids are going to turn out. And that's very foolish. And my kids are wonderful. I love them. I love spending time with them. But every child is their own person.
Mhm.
And as they grow and become a little bit more knowledgeable and independent, they are going to make their own choices, no matter what you instill in them, no matter what framework you set up in your family. And that's good. They should do that. But they're going to make some decisions that we don't like, or that we don't agree with. And I think that it surprised me that my formula didn't work the way that I expected it to.
Agreed.
And that's not like I said it's really silly, but I really probably believed that things would turn out a certain way. And overall, they have turned out very well, and they are turning out very well. But yeah, so I think from the very youngest age, and you guys, you can probably already see this in a baby. You know, we're all flawed. None of us are perfect, or none of us is perfect. And so I think letting our kids make some of those mistakes and live through some consequences of them has been really in some of my better parenting moments. And then some of my worst parenting moments is probably trying to micromanage them a little bit too much because I wanted them to make me look good, if I'm being completely honest, you know?
I'm not
Or did you
laughing
take
at
it as a reflection on you?
Yeah.
If it wasn't. Yeah.
It feels like that,
sure.
you know? I mean, it does. If
Yeah.
your kid's not doing what another kid's doing, and that starts very young. Like my kids were real late walkers, let me just say. And I had friends, their kids were walking like 5 months before my kids were. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Nothing. They all walked. They're fine. Athletic. They can do all the things, but you know.
two things. One, I started laughing while you were talking because I remembered that Instagram post you made where it was like, sometimes with your kids, I don't remember exactly what it was, so I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, you'll take your kid on a nice picnic on a sunny afternoon, and another day, you're wearing a face mask and you're screaming at them without any pants on.
Yep.
And you were like, I know what they're going to remember, and it ain't no dang picnic.
Nope. Let me tell you this. Beaver has a lot of one-way streets, and I don't like driving around Beaver. It's fine now, but like back in the day, I would always be going the wrong way, or like trying to go the wrong way. And I one time yelled out in the car with my kids, I hate driving in this town. And do you know my youngest to this day, every time we're driving in Beaver, he's in his 20s and he's still like, you really hate driving around this town. Huh? And I was like, son of a gun, are you ever going to let me live that down?
That's surprising. Yeah. The things that stick, you don't always expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're the dumb
Shoot.
things.
Yep.
Like that's what he remembers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fascinating how,
It's
I mean,
terrifying.
every kid, how they have their own personality. I remember when we had our first, like, you would hear like, oh, this is like the trial baby. It's your first one. You're like,
Yes.
get all the mistakes out. And if you're going to have more kids, you have to get it right.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, because it's not formula. There's no formula.
No.
By and large, you can't just say, if this is going to be the outcome. You're like, nope, this is a totally different kid. Could be a totally different ball game.
Wow.
Yes.
Sure, there's structure and there's frameworks you can provide, and that works. But every kid is its own, and they'll throw you a curveball.
That's
Super
so
fast.
true. Like I remember if my parents, I have no kids, if my parents gave me a look or were like, knock it off, or like, I'm mad at you or something, it would crush me for the rest of the day. But my sister needed to be like shaken, like, Nadine, stop. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah, it's true. We're all different. And as soon as you figure it out with one, you're going to get a totally different one and
Oh,
have
That
to
is
figure
so
it out again.
funny.
And you're learning to parent as they're learning to be a human. And so you're going to do things on the fly, and you can't plan for every scenario. You can't. I mean,
Well, okay, what do you guys think is the best? Maybe not the best, but what do you guys think is the worst thing that you could do for any kid apart from abuse and neglect?
I'm going to say off the top of my head, I think the best thing we can do for our children is create an environment where they know generally what to expect. Whether that's being very small and you're just setting that sleep, eat, play schedule, or whether they're at this age and you set the tone for here's what the expectations are. You know, if you do your chores, then this happens. If you don't do that, then this happens. Or here's our daily framework of schedule that you can expect. I think I've watched enough documentaries on serial killers to know that one of the worst things that you can do as a parent is not create a safe environment where kids know what to expect. When they have different people coming in and out of their residence, or they're moving all the time, or the rules are being changed, or one day the parent is easygoing and the next day the parent is screaming at the smallest thing. I think that does a lot of harm to kids. So that would probably be my top answer.
something. I kind of went to like not being afraid to fail,
Mm.
whether that's if you know. They, I never wanted to create like a bubble boy syndrome. It's like, yes, go out and play. And like, I have two boys, and like, yes, I have a lot of band-aids like on hand and ready
Mhm.
because they're going to run, they're going to climb, but it's always within some safe boundaries. But at the same time, like, they have to learn what the consequences are to know, like, oh, if you're going to go sliding on concrete, it's probably going to hurt, bud. Like, here we go. Not a great thing. Or you can't jump from that height because you know it's going to hurt. Or
Yeah.
just learning those things because life is hard enough as it is. But if you have no awareness of what challenges can come because you've never actually experienced anything, that's one thing. And it's much easier for them to experience some of those things when they're little because they can't do huge things. Versus if you're trying to figure all this out in your 20s, your 30s,
Yeah.
you can really do harm to yourself or to others. You know,
Mhm.
so those kind of things.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to instill, like, when we start going to the playground is, like, being okay with my kid taking risks, but, like, in an intelligent or, like, smart way, like a calculating way, like, because I used to be a teacher, so I would see kids on the playground and, like, obviously safety was very important, so I wouldn't be letting kids, like, take those calculated risks just because if they got hurt on my watch, that was an issue, but, like, it helped me to see like, envision that in the future, like, if my kid is, like, if I see him calculating, like, the distance between a jump between 2 things, like, if he's not, like, in imminent danger, I wanna see, like, where he goes with that before I jump in and say, "Don't do that." Like,
Yeah.
there are those things where, yeah, I think it's good to, like, let them make those mistakes that, in, like, a place where they have a soft place to land.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's not, and I wasn't just talking about like life threatening things to try.
No, no, no,
It's also
I
like,
didn't mean to,
hey, I
yeah.
want to try basketball over
Yeah.
soccer or someone
Yeah.
else. And it turns out like, hey, they may be really good at it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know?
Are there things that you guys experienced growing up that you thought, I'm never going to do this with my kid, or I for sure am going to repeat this tradition or whatever?
My parents and Mark's parents did this too. I don't want to say got lazier, but they definitely got more relaxed with the kids after us. So I only have one sister, and Mark also has a younger sister. I'll just use myself as an example. If I wasn't allowed to do something until I was 12, Nadine could do it at 10 or even 8. If I wasn't allowed to do something until I was 17, she could do it at 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And that bugged me so much because we went to Rhode Island the one year. The legal gambling age in Rhode Island is 19, and we went when I was 19. So I was like, awesome, I'm gonna gamble a little bit. I lost all $7 that I brought, and I was really upset. Ends my gambling career. But anyways, I was gambling in Rhode Island for a little bit, and it was like for a couple of hours, I guess. But Nadine was with me, and she was with my mom too. This is getting so confusing. I'm sorry. Let me start
No,
over.
I
The
love
legal
this.
gambling age in Rhode Island is 19. My family and I went when I was 19, and I got to gamble a little bit. And Nadine saw me doing that, and she was like, in Arabic, she was like, Mom, I want to do that too. And immediately I was like, you know, she thinks that this is okay. How a 19-year-old handles things really poorly. I was like, you know, she thinks this is okay because you let her do everything that I can do. And my mom like didn't say anything because I think she knew that, like, crap, this is kind of the consequence of that action. But growing up, I would always be like, stop comparing her to me that way. Like, stop letting her do things because there's going to be times, like, that's just a small example. It was nothing life-threatening or anything, but it was really irritating. So long story short, I'm going to try really hard to stick to the age things. Like, if the first kid can't do something until they're 10, the second and third kid can't do it until they're 10 too. Unless there's a good reason. Like maybe maturity.
There will be a good reason. Because here's one of the reasons parents do that. One is we do get tired and a little bit lazy. But also it's because, like the example that I can think of. So I have 4 kids. They're all actually really close in age, but there's enough of a difference that, so my oldest son did not get to do things as early as our later kids did. Like, I didn't let him watch SpongeBob. I don't know why. SpongeBob is great. I love SpongeBob now, but at the time I thought it was like a crass cartoon. So he wasn't allowed to watch that. Well, then I figured out it wasn't so bad. So then the later kids got to watch it, and I still never hear the end of that. But if you didn't let your youngest do things to a certain age, then your oldest actually wouldn't get to do some things as well. Because like if you're going to, say, a children's amusement park when your youngest is that age, well, he's not going to want to do that when he's 10. So then you go to a regular amusement park. So then or a movie or whatever that is, your oldest is going to want to do older kid things. So you kind of have to bring sometimes your younger kids along with.
Mhm.
And that's just the natural, thing that happens.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, but
I think I more meant like, I don't want to say arbitrary because this is kind of a big one, but we were talking about it earlier. Phones, like in my head just right now, I'd be like, you can't have a phone until you're however many years old.
yeah.
And I'd want that to be true for all of the kids. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want that to change based on, that's one of those things that I guess isn't really affected by maturity.
No, I
But you know
agree
what I
with
mean?
you.
Like kind of bigger things.
And we actually did do that. Our age was 16 and none of our kids had a phone until they were 16. And we kind of kept to that
That's
like
neat.
hard line.
Mhm.
But I'm sure we dropped the ball in many other areas. Our kids would tell you.
So focus on those. Focus on the good stuff.
Yes, that's one thing I did right.
Well, what about you guys for Allison's question?
I would say going to the Jersey Shore was something that my family had a beach house growing up. So like now that we don't have one, I still want to make an effort to like expose the baby to the beach. So that way, like we're not going there when he's like 7 and it's like he hates the sand. So that's something that's I guess like a parenting choice that I can make this year is like making the effort this summer to get like to a place with sand. It doesn't have to be New Jersey, but yeah, just like that would be something because I really like I'm the type of person that can just sit on the beach all day and read if like there's nothing else pulling me to do anything. So
Yeah.
I would like to share that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. My mind went to so I'm a twin.
I didn't
I
know
didn't
that.
know that.
Oh, well, okay. I'm a
Are
twin.
you identical?
No, fraternal. You
Okay.
would never know it if you walked in.
Okay.
We're the same height. But in my family, there's twins in every other generation. And a lot of them
Wow.
were identical. And I think my parents, they wanted to safeguard against that. They wanted us to be our own person.
Mm.
So the only picture we were ever dressed alike was like when we were like 8 months old or something. Like that was it. But we always had this debate, like, because they want us to be our own person, did they kind of push us apart a little bit? Because my brother and I, we fought all growing up.
Mm.
Honestly, it wasn't until college that we actually like figured it out and became like really solid. But I remember towards the end of high school, there's another family friend. They had brothers, but they were like 2 or 3 years apart. And if the dad caught them fighting, like he was on them. But I remember he caught me and my brother kind of fighting, and he was like, "Look, like that's your brother. Like that's your brother for life. That's your friend for life. Brothers love and protect, nothing else." And that wasn't really something that was emphasized. I'm sure my parents did a lot that I just don't remember.
Yeah.
But with my boys, that's something that even when they're fighting, that's kind of the mantra in our household is like brothers, like what do? They love and protect. You just kind of want to instill that because there were many years like I wish I'd had my brothers back
Mhm.
better than what I did. So
That's really
That's a
cool.
good one. I'm going to give you 2 answers. One's kind of more meaningful. My parents were very humble people, and that showed through in every aspect of life, but it also showed through in parenting. And I think as a parent, that's one of the challenges is to be humble with your kids because we're supposed to be the person in charge, and we often don't want to show like our mistakes because we think that maybe that gives them permission to make the same mistakes. But my husband and I really tried and still try to demonstrate humility, because one of the outpourings of that is that you end up having really good relationships. It doesn't mean that we let them walk all over us. I don't mean that. I just mean there were times we sinned against our kids. I lost my temper and I yelled. And so I had to go, I needed to go and apologize to them and ask for their forgiveness. Not just say sorry, but truly ask for their forgiveness. And that both was an example for them, but also I think it made us trustworthy, that they could come to us with their mistakes. And it just helped build relationships. So that was something I always wanted to emulate from my parents. And then the not so serious one is we grew up going to Kennywood, which is a local amusement park. And my first roller coaster was the Jackrabbit. And so we made sure, and that was my husband's first roller coaster.
Aw.
So we made sure that was our kids' first roller coaster, even if we took them dragging like and kicking and screaming.
And how did that go over?
Only one of them cried the whole ride. But she is my most fearless one when it comes to roller coasters. She's been skydiving. I mean,
Wow.
Oh, wow.
so I don't think it backfired, but she cried pretty hard.
Yeah.
I laughed all the time. I was going to say maybe not one of my funnest moments.
Talking about like the different personalities. Like my oldest, Jackrabbit was his first, and
Yeah.
like smiling, laughing, throwing his arms up.
Wow.
My youngest, like the picture is like he's literally just clamped onto my arm and just screaming, "Make it stop! Make it
Yeah,
stop! Make
yeah.
it stop!" And it's like we
Oh.
gotta wait till it's over, bud.
Did you and Chad decide the humility thing together, or was that something that kind of just happened?
I don't think we talked about that. No, I don't think that was part of like a specific something intentional. But Chad is a very humble guy. I probably was drawn to a humble spouse because my dad was that way as well. And I think for us, it just was sort of intrinsically something that we wanted to do. But also that it evolved. I made a lot of mistakes in parenting early on. And I don't know if I've shared this before, but I was kind of a yeller when my kids were young, and I really did not want to be that way. And so I needed to make some intentional changes so that that would stop. And I, had talked about it to my husband, and we are people of faith, and so I prayed about that a lot. And I went, especially to my oldest son, because I felt like he bore the brunt of that, being the oldest, and I really confessed that to him and asked for his forgiveness. And I said, listen, if I start to raise my voice, all you have to do is put your hand up. And immediately I will stop whatever I'm doing and we'll just take a break from the situation and cool down and then come back.
I bet that helped so much.
It did. It changed our relationship. And we have a very sweet relationship now. He's my oldest. I mean, he's,
buddy.
fully adult and independent. And he's, one of the reasons I needed to change that was not just because it was wrong of me to do with my kids, but also he's very tender. And it really, I think, crushed his spirit a little bit when I would do that. And so he's a very strong person, but he has a very gentle sweetness about him. And he, to this day, does not like to be around people who are yelling, who kind of lose their tempers. Like he will kind of separate himself from that a little bit. So it was something that turned out to be very good, and it was a learning experience, but it was definitely an area of fault that I needed to change. I needed to address that and change it. And that was something that in humility I needed to bring before my kids and acknowledge that so that they could see that and see real change.
That's really cool.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I feel bad I crapped on my parents earlier. Let me just say.
Like you literally crapped on your
No, you know what I mean? Like I was like the age thing. I feel really bad,
You're
but
only a
don't feel
month
bad.
old. Come on.
Yeah.
I know, but still.
Well, what was something that they did or that Mark's parents did that you guys really want to?
Yeah, something my parents did, and I think Mark's parents, I know they did this actually also, but they did this so well. I've met so many people in college who can't drive for longer than an hour without taking a break. Like if they're going to Pittsburgh, they're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I don't know where the rest stops are. I don't know how many snacks I'm going to need to bring. And my parents, since we were young, would put us in the car and drive up to Canada where my uncle lived. And it was like an 8.5 to a 9-hour drive for, I don't know, a 3 to an 8-year-old. And it was just so good for us. Like we got used to sitting in the car for a long time, entertaining ourselves for a while, not constantly needing to be stimulated, knowing that a road trip takes a long time, but like it's a fun payoff at the end.
Yeah.
So that was something they did really, really well that I would love to also do.
Nice.
So
Thanks
you
for
have one
listening.
sibling.
I
How many
do.
siblings? Just one?
Just one. Yeah, they had us, and then we're like, or no.
I just have one brother, younger.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay.
How many do you have?
I have 4.
Mm.
Are you
Wow.
one of 4 or are you?
I'm one of 5.
Okay.
So actually in our family, it's a little strange too, because my siblings are all like 2 years apart, but then there was a 10-year gap and I was a surprise baby. So I
Fun.
kind of have both of some of the qualities of growing up in a big family, but also a little bit of an only child in some ways because they were out of the house by the time I don't even know.
Like 10 years old, probably.
Yeah. The last one was fully out of the house then.
Oh.
So, but I've also had the benefit of watching them. They're all parents and watching them raise kids ahead of me. And I've told them many times how thankful I am for their examples because they're all wonderful parents. And, they all went through hard things and really sweet things. And that was a real benefit to me to get to. It was almost like I had extra parents around too. So,
I bet you were all of their kids' favorite aunt because you were closer to their
I
age.
totally was. I still am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call.
I was
That's
the cool
awesome.
aunt. Chad was the cool uncle. And
Uncle.
Yeah, the kunkel. Sure, we'll go maybe with that. But
We'll workshop it.
yeah, I didn't always get to spend as much time with him as I would have liked to. But I was an aunt when I was 6.
Whoa.
I brought my oldest nephew, to show and tell in first grade.
No, you did not.
That's
I
amazing.
did.
I love that.
So he
That's
doesn't
awesome.
he doesn't remember that, but
That's the coolest thing.
yeah. Yeah. It was a small school. They didn't care. But yeah, it's just funny how everyone grows up in their own families. I know that like in high school, all of my good friends were from kind of challenging circumstances. And my parents were old. Like they were old parents. And I thought they were super like old fashioned and kind of fuddy-duddies. I mean, I love them, but I was like, a little embarrassed of them. And my friends always wanted to hang out at my house. And I was like, why? My dad's in there watching Lawrence Welk. Why do you want to be here? Because it was calm.
That's
My
so
house was
nice.
peaceful. Nobody yelled at anybody.
Same.
And that's such a gift. I didn't realize
For
it at
sure.
the time. But like, I feel like if we can cultivate peace in our homes, no matter if we have kids or not, that's really a gift to people who visit.
That's so
Definitely.
profound.
Thanks.
It was always the same thing growing up. Anyone was welcome at our house. It was just, if someone's here, you make them feel welcome, make them feel loved.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And,
cool.
Yeah, it's like Southern hospitality, but like that's also something I want to share like with my boys, make sure that like whether it's our neighbors or we're having friends over, like they feel welcomed and loved
Yeah.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Something else my parents did, which I think was really smart, and I don't know if they did this on purpose or like if they realized how big it was, but my dad always told us like, if you ever want to drink, if you ever want to do any drugs or anything, do it here. And I was always like, nice, okay, good to know. I have a
Party at
safe place.
Michelle's house.
But then it's so backwards because it's like, do I really
never
want
did
to
it.
get high at my parents' house? Do I really want to drink at my parents' house?
Mhm.
No. So I never did. And then I
Mm.
was never interested in it. So I don't know if he did that on purpose with the reverse psychology in mind, or if he was literally just like, I'd rather have you doing it here.
Yeah.
Probably the first one. But still.
You're like, I think he was actually really smart. Huh.
Maybe he just wanted some crack through his daughter. I don't know. I've never seen crack. Anyways.
Like now we need to have your dad on just to have some conversation.
Seriously.
No, my
yeah.
dad's a really good dad. He doesn't like crack.
Yeah.
Oh,
Poor
gosh.
dad.
He's a wonderful man.
There's the Michelle moment. That's the clip right
Oh,
there.
God.
Yeah.
That's the TikTok clip.
Yep.
Cut this out.
You just wanted some crack.
Did you guys do anything as adolescents that were rebellious or that you would hope your kids wouldn't do? That you feel like you can share? I don't want to be too personal.
I don't know. I was pretty tame. Like my mom said that, like reflecting back on my teenage years, she was surprised at how like not like she felt like she was like, you weren't as emotionally turbulent as like other moms had like warned me like you could have been.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really go through like a rebellious spell as much when I was always the friend that like parents were like, oh, they're hanging out with Erin, that like we're glad she's over. I'm like,
Aw.
yeah. Well, it was like as an adult, I'm like, that's like kind of nice. But as a kid, I was like, I don't want parents to like me. But then I also couldn't figure out how to like break the rules. So here we
Yeah.
I really love you.
That's
Square
awesome.
Erin.
Square
Erin.
Erin. Is that going to be your new nickname at work?
Yeah, sure.
Squaring.
Swearing. Yeah.
Square.
We got it.
Oh, man. What about you?
I think the statute of limitations are up.
Oh, okay.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
I'm kidding. Sorry.
Okay.
Arson.
That's gonna be revisited
Yeah, I
at a
know.
later
That lake is
podcast.
too-
Yeah, I know, yeah. I wouldn't say anything truly rebellious.
Any dumb things, though, that you did just like not thinking or?
I'm sure. I probably just don't remember.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I was always up for an adventure, but I was also, I guess, a bit of a control freak. I was also one that was like making sure everyone was like okay and safe, and so, yeah.
Yeah.
If I think of something, I'll let you know. But
Yeah.
nothing's popping to mind real quick.
Yeah. I
What
was a good
about
kid,
you?
too. No, I was a good kid. I mean, not perfect, but I don't think I caused my parents much grief. My brothers were probably a little bit more of a slight burden in that direction. They definitely did some dumb high school boy things, but not like terrible, not like breaking the law, just dumb.
Like lighting a trash can on fire.
Well, like they got into like a fair number of car accidents.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Just being stupid, not like drinking or anything, but yeah. No, I was pretty easy kid, I think, overall.
I was
Yeah.
asked when you were talking about the parents and how you relate and with your kids. It sounds like you still have really good communication with your kids.
I think so.
By and large, yeah, and it's something that I feel like my parents are always telling me that I do. I have amazing parents, and I like keep in touch with them. It's a blessing when I get to take the boys and like we go down and visit with them. But they tell me pretty regularly, like when they talk to people and their peers, their age, that a lot of them are like, yeah, our kids don't really talk to us.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's just a different separation, or I don't really know what the reason is, but that was something else that like I want to make sure my kids always feel comfortable like coming and talking to me, and that we have that relationship for their
Yeah.
life. It's not just get them out the house and then good riddance. It's
Yep.
no, like I'm your dad for life, and
Yeah.
I'll always be here, kind of thing.
I wanted to ask you guys, what was your biggest fear before you became parents? And I guess, yeah, what were your biggest fears before you became parents? And maybe what are they now in terms of parenting?
I don't think we have enough time because I have anxiety.
Yeah.
So I worried over the dumbest and the biggest and the most outrageous things.
Mhm.
I think my biggest fear, probably if I would boil it down, would be safety.
Yeah.
Like, there are many things that you think about. You think from things like SIDS to, car accidents and the house catching on fire. And I mean, there are just a million things to think about. And I had to really wrestle with that because you can't walk around afraid all the time. And I didn't know that there were like chemicals available that could probably have helped me with that. But I just had to pray a lot because I couldn't walk around in a ball of fear all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's probably my biggest thing.
Mhm.
How about you? It's fairly fresh for you.
Yeah, I would say the safety thing is like pretty big and still is because of just there's like a lot of advice now and like all the things you can buy to like give you peace of mind, but it still is a little like nerve-wracking. So
Mhm.
that's something that I've also had to like really work on and like get myself through is just like working through those worries about the safety stuff
Yeah.
for sure. It's been like the tough. Now that he's here, before he was here, it was like getting here.
Yeah.
That was also scary, like the process of birthing and everything.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying.
It's not like it's. I mean, it's scary, but the thing that always made me feel good was like thousands of babies are born every day.
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
that's like always what I would tell myself and and I would also kind of sometimes a lot of my anxieties are like I try to remind myself like you're not in a bad way, you're not special, but like
Oh,
a
totally.
ton of bad, terrible things can't all happen to you. So like try not to like focus in on those things happening.
That's good advice.
Hmm. Yeah.
What were some of the things that you were?
I think when they were like really little, it was just getting hurt. So like
Mhm.
my oldest, super athletic. This kid like he never really got hurt. Like he could fall and we're like, oh, but he would just like tuck and roll and pop right back up and like he was amazing. My youngest son would like lead with his head. Like
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on? Talking about different personalities.
Yeah.
So
Lead
just
with
like
his
always
head.
wanting to protect, but knowing that you can't
Yes.
always protect them. So that
And you
was
shouldn't.
right.
Mhm.
It kind of
Yeah.
goes back to that taking risk and they have to
Yeah.
learn their boundaries kind of thing. As they've gotten older, I've heard it said like part of the goal of parenting is to create an independent human that knows how to go out and live a good life. And making sure that we're actually raising kids that can do that.
And that aren't jerks.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to raise a punk.
No.
Right. And I feel like in my life, like I was very blessed early on. Like I got to do a lot of travel and go to different places in the world and you see different things. And I think that influences just how you process and you appreciate things. So part of my fear is want to make sure that I'm raising boys that are ready to be men
Mhm.
That's
and
really
to be
cool.
a good man.
Yeah.
For that matter.
Yeah, raising boys is its own unique set of challenges because the culture is very hard on men right now. And, years ago, it was very easy on men. And it's like we go to polar opposites, I feel like. And my husband and I wanted to raise young men who were strong and could care for others and take care of a family, raise kids, if needed, serve their country, do all of those things. But we also wanted them to have gentle spirits and be kind and be compassionate and humble. And man, that's hard to do. It's hard to walk that line.
Yeah, I so appreciated what you said earlier though about like recognizing your son's like tenderness and like having that humility to like be like talk with him about those things and kind of just do what was best for him. Like I really appreciated like the nurturing of that because I think sometimes that's like hard to remind boys to do.
Yeah.
It's just, I feel like I grew up with people that like, when you go off to college, that's typically like your first kind of real sense of independence. And I definitely had friends that like, it was very clear, like they were not ready. Like they weren't prepared. They were very anxious. They were just, they didn't really know what to do with themselves. Versus others like, yeah, it's not really a thing. Like I've been trained to be responsible. I know what to do. And like, here we go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just knowing those things.
I tell you, it's one of the biggest challenges as a parent is when your child does first kind of leave home. And for us, it was our oldest going to basic training.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you, that was tough.
I bet.
It was really tough. He did great. I mean, like, but when I still have this picture of him at the airport. We could go to the gate with him, and he's getting on the plane, and I'm like trying to hold it together because I'm thinking they're going to yell at my baby and they're going to be mean to him, and I have never been a basic. I don't know what that's like, and what's he going to face there? And he is allowed to call you when he gets there and let you know he's fine, and it's honestly like a 15-second conversation, and that's it. And then you can write letters back and forth. And then they get one call during like halfway through basic where they get to talk to you for like, I don't know, like 3 minutes. And, like just to hear his voice, but like that's it. And then you get to go down for basic graduation. And I'll never forget, he was 18 when he went to basic. I think he was 18. Yeah. He joined when he was 17, but he went to basic at 18. And he was pretty average, tall, skinny kid. And when we got down, they come in running and like they're in these like squadrons or whatever.
They do that on purpose.
And we're
I
looking
bet.
for him, and he wears like military issued glasses. We knew he had a buzz cut, but I'm like looking for my kid. Like I can't find my kid. What kind of parent am I? My kid had gained 15 pounds of muscle and his neck had doubled in size.
Oh my
and I was
gosh.
like, oh my gosh, that's him.
A hunk of dunk.
And then when you go to the like graduation, they are standing at attention, and it's called tapping out. As soon as you tap on the shoulder, then they can like relax and hug you.
Hey.
That was a great hug. I'm not going to lie. But, I was like, the first question is, how was it? And he told us lots of details and everything, but he goes, it was great. It was great. Like, as long as you do what you're told and don't show up late and don't volunteer for anything, basic training is not that hard. And it was a good parenting and life lesson for me. The fears that we have almost never come to fruition.
Yeah.
And the things that do come to fruition are the things that we don't think to be afraid of. So
Exactly.
there's
some really
surprises.
good point.
Yeah. I think it's also how you define hard. It seems like you raised a boy that there's a difference between hard and a challenge.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
I think things are hard when you actually don't know how to cope and you don't know how to deal with it. But a challenge is like, well, it's front. Now we're going to move through it.
True.
Yeah.
And so,
Also, I will say my father-in-law was in the Marines a long time ago, and he said, I don't think basic training is quite as hard as it was in my day. That's probably true. But yeah.
Yep.
Different laws and stuff.
Yeah, maybe. It's just different. But yeah, he also was Marines versus the Air Force, and that's a whole other podcast. So
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love the way you talk about your kids, Allison. You could tell you love them so much.
I do, but we're made to love our kids. That's the way that life is ordered. And the people who really don't love their kids they're anomalies. I mean, it's built into our DNA. As soon as you see that little baby's face, whether you birthed them or somebody else birthed them and put them in your arms, we are wired to love them.
Yep. That was something, honestly, like I was concerned about, like after having my first, like I love that boy. Like he's my son. And you develop that bond, and then we had a second. And I was like, am I going to love this kid as much as my first? Like, how does that happen? And yeah, as soon as he's born, like as soon as you hold him, like you're like, yep, I'm good. Like I remember talking to friends, they're like, yeah, you just this another part of your heart will kind of open up, and you
Yes.
just didn't know it was there,
Mhm.
and
My
that's been the case.
my mother-in-law said the same thing about Mark because he's her second baby, and she said her whole pregnancy, she was like, "Am I gonna like this kid? Am I
Right.
gonna love him at all?" And then as soon as she held him, she said she just started crying because she was like, "Of course I love him. He's my
Yep.
baby."
Yep.
I think love is not finite.
Ah,
And I remember someone telling me, because every parent, when that second kid is on their way, every parent is worried about that. Love multiplies.
yeah.
And it's the
Yep.
only thing that really multiplies like that. And it's like you're exactly right. As soon as you see the face of that second kid, you're like, oh, okay. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not a comparison. It's not a contest. And it's not a mathematical equation that you're cutting something in half.
Yeah. What is your guys' favorite part about being a parent? And like, what do you find yourself thinking about or looking forward to the most with your kids?
I'm just excited to see like what kind of person he's going to be, because I think, like, to go back to what you asked about, like, what's surprising, like, I was looking at pictures yesterday from like when we first brought him home, and like I was just like shocked at like how much life has happened in 7 months. Like it feels like
Mhm.
a really long amount of time.
Mhm.
And then also just like how much growth has happened between like him and like physically, but also just like for me and my husband as well, just how much we've both grown and our relationship has grown since then. Um, so yeah, I would say that's been really surprising. And like that's what I'm looking most forward to, is just seeing that growth progress over time. Cause like when he can talk and stuff, it's gonna be so fun to see like what words he says and how he laughs and
Yeah.
What
His
his voice
voice.
sounds like.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cause right now it's like kind of scratchy. So I think it would be really cute if he
I
like
love a scratchy voice.
has like
Yeah.
a scratchy voice when he like starts speaking. So
Yeah.
It's
mhm.
totally off tangent, but I've also found it always fascinating with babies. Like if you think back to baby photos, like they'll raise their arms up,
Mhm.
their arms are fully extended, but they're barely above their head.
Yes.
Now you look now, so as they start to like get limb control and they start actually growing, and they're like, oh, I can reach that. Like it's
Mhm.
not just like T-Rex arms
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
It's always just a fun part to watch.
It is.
Yeah.
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 I have another question, but I want to hear your guys'
Yeah.
answers to this first.
I don't know. I count it a blessing to be a dad. I think I've been blessed with two amazing boys. They're also hilarious and they're unpredictable, and that's when they have their personalities. But like when they just say things that you don't expect, and they're hilarious, and you get to see that personality come
Yeah.
out, and just to be able to love them, and hopefully rear them in a way that's honorable and in a good way. But just watching them develop into who they're going to be.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten to experience some of the things that I spent their lives looking forward to. You know, I got to dance with my son at his wedding. I got to watch my husband walk our daughter down the aisle. And I've seen them make wonderful choices for the people that they married. I look forward to that, hopefully, with my other two boys, that they choose wonderful women, and that we get to add these people into our home, our lives. And I've gotten to hold two grandchildren so far. I mean, that's something I've waited a long time for. It's interesting. I read recently that someone said you only get to spend 18 years of your children's lives with them in your home, typically.
Mhm.
The rest of the time you know them, they'll be adults. And I
That's
hadn't
kind of
really
a weird way to
thought
think
about
about
that
it.
before. But I watched with my parents and my siblings. We've always had so much fun together. And my parents they're gone now. They're passed away. But my siblings and I and the in-laws, we all have a group chat. And whenever anything's going on, whether it's something that's heartbreaking with somebody or whether it's really good news or a new grandbaby is born, like we're the first people that we want to share that with. And that's what I look forward to with my kids. And we have a family group chat as well. And it seems like that's happening. And that's my heart's desire is one day Chad and I will be gone if things go in the natural order of things. And our kids, like you said, Jared, like they're going to be siblings their whole lives. That's their first relationship. And my prayer, my hope is that my kids really enjoy those relationships all throughout however long they live.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, so as someone who's the only one of us that has grandkids now,
Mhm.
even kind of like genetically, get a little bit nerdy here. Like your kids certainly look like you,
Mhm.
but their kids will most likely actually resemble you and your husband much more so.
Mhm.
So are
Really?
you interested to see like, well, your kids' kids actually look and be a bit more like you?
Well, I
That's
will say they're incredibly good looking. So,
Okay.
I mean, more so than the average child, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
It is funny to see that. And we've seen even like with our oldest grandson that he has ways about him that remind us of our oldest son. He doesn't look like him necessarily, although there are definitely traits. I mean, blue
Sure.
eyes all around. So there's
Yep.
just blue eyes everywhere. But now looking at this infant, and you can't tell when they're infants, it's so hard to see like the features, but I see bits of their mom. I certainly see bits of their dad. And yeah, it's fun to watch their personalities come out. And yeah.
I was going to say there's a saying in Lebanon that girls look like their aunts and boys look like their uncles.
Wait,
Huh.
that's so interesting because
Mhm.
everyone growing up, my mom and her sister, her older sister, look very similar. But everyone, when we would be out with them, they would think that I was my aunt's daughter.
Really?
So interesting.
Yeah,
I know
same.
nothing about genetics. Like
Mhm.
I didn't understand it when I was in school, but that's really interesting.
Mhm.
But I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
If it's not too personal,
There's nothing too personal.
have you and
Oh.
Mark talked about like how many kids you want to have?
Yeah.
Or Yeah.
So, God willing, in 5 or 6 years, we'd like to start having kids,
Mhm.
and we want to get them all out as soon as possible. Like, a lot of people will be like, we're going to have 2 now and then wait a few years. No, I don't want to be wiping buttholes for like 10 years. So, all kids at once,
fair.
God willing. We'd like to have 4 kids. Personally, open womb, however many kids God wants. 8, 12, I don't know.
Oh,
Probably
okay.
4. 4 is ideal.
I think if you have 12 kids, you don't have to pay any federal income tax or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll have
Don't
to run
quote me
one
on
by
that.
Mark. 12 kids. That'd be way too many. Ideally 4, I think, would be good.
But at 12, you already have built-in babysitters by that point.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
true. That's
Built-in
true.
childcare. Here we go.
Yeah.
Just build that homestead.
And then they never talk to us again because they're like, our parents just raised us to be slaves of the house.
The cost of groceries, if you have 12 kids, you're just
Cool.
going to need a few cows and some chickens, I think,
for
to,
sure.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, would you want to have twins? Just
Oh my gosh, Jared.
Just duplicate?
Genuinely, I would love to have twins.
I always wanted twins.
Jared, I really just wanted that first pregnancy. I was like, 1 pregnancy, 2 children.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Do you think this is stupid? And I've looked it up and I know there isn't, but have you guys, especially you, because you know this more, I think, with genetics, is there anything you can eat to improve your likelihood of twins?
Not that I'm aware of.
You can't eat like 2 grapes at the same time. Get your body in the mood.
You know, you missed an
I'll get back to you. I'm going to
opportunity.
give a
Yeah.
really random list of things to do. Just to see.
I was going to say, that's really like a fun opportunity to
yeah.
have a child. There's a lot of promising research on, you know.
Paying men with the name Jared $5
That's
a
it.
day increases your chances.
Yes.
Make that a more clever joke.
Okay.
I don't think he can. He's
Yeah,
good, but he's
oh.
not that good.
Okay.
Whatever.
So you guys want 2?
Yes.
Is that the perfect number?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know when you'd like to start trying for the second one, or is that more like if it happens, it happens?
I'm not really sure. Like, I think I would definitely like 2 years between. So not for a little bit, but yeah, I think that's probably,
Nice.
yeah.
My sister and I are about 2 years apart, and it's, I think, a good age.
Yeah, my brother and I are 2 years apart, and I felt like that's like a nice, like, it's far enough apart, like in school, like when you're like in school that you have different groups of friends and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a girl and he's a boy, so like we did have different like friends and interests and stuff, but it was like a nice like space between each other. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
mhm.
I wanted like 4 or 5, and we had 4 or 5, and they were
Yeah.
close in age. I think at one point I did have 3 in diapers at once.
Was that hard?
I don't remember. I'll be honest
This side of
with
the
you.
table was like.
If I have to look at one more little butt.
I don't mind changing diapers, even now with my grandkids. I don't mind that,
Mhm.
although my one's kind of wiggly. But I think the hardest maintenance thing of when they were little was like stomach flu, honestly,
Oh.
because kids they're not really good at making it to receptacles to
Mhm.
puke. And so there's a lot of puke cleaning up when you have a lot of kids. And stomach flu does not hit all at once or real
Mhm.
close. Like there were times when somebody was down in our house for like a month or 6 weeks.
Oh.
because you just get one over it and then the other
Somebody
one
else would be
start. Yeah.
starting.
Honestly, stomach flu was just the worst. It was
Like
worse than
the-
everything else because everything else is manageable because it's one kid at a time
Sure.
or it's, I don't know. Yeah, stomach flu stinks.
I'd like to redact my answer about 12 kids then. Officially.
If someone could just please come up with a vaccine or a cure for stomach flu, I would pay any amount of money to buy whatever they sell.
What's that stuff? Pepto-Bismol?
Doesn't work.
No.
Just get pink vomit.
Oh.
That stains everything.
Oh,
Mark.
you guys.
There's
All three of you
nothing.
know this. Okay, real quick. I do have one more question.
Okay.
What do you do if you notice your kid is developing weird? Like if you're like, this left arm is growing way faster than the right one. Or like, here's the legs, but the torso's about this big. Like, what do you do? It's not concerning. Just cosmetically, they look weird.
Because we did have to deal with some physical things with our kids. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything you can do.
Yeah.
There are interventions. I have some nephews who actually have a physical deformity where one arm was shorter than the other, and they have surgeries that they're painful and it's a difficult process, but they had to have some of that done just so that they would have good mobility and things.
Wow, God bless.
My son had to have he had curved feet from the womb, and he had to have casts on his legs for a while. He didn't care. It was harder on me.
Yeah, that is for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. My youngest had severe torticollis. It's the muscle that runs from the back of your jaw down to your sternum.
Yeah.
So his head was always tilted severely.
Mm.
And so his eyes and his ears, like his head, when you look down, looked more like a rhombus than a round head. And so
Yeah.
there was a lot of just therapy and stretching and pain. And he had to wear a neck brace for, I think like about a year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
That was miserable. And I would basically torture him trying to do all the therapy and have to stretch his neck, and he would scream. And yeah, by the time he was 1.5, like I was worried he would never come to me in his life, because anytime I went near him, he knew it was therapy time and he'd start screaming. We're totally cool. We're totally cool. Well, what's funny is like you said, it was so hard because it's a hard therapy to go through.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crying, a lot of screaming, but he doesn't remember any of it. And like we actually sat, I was showing him pictures, and he's like, I had to wear that. I'm like, oh, thank God you don't know this. Like, I'm glad that is just out of your mind.
You take this as an opportunity. I was the best father.
Yeah.
I soothed you to sleep every night.
Yeah. Yep.
You never screamed once in my presence.
I did have to put him to bed every night almost.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
That stuff is brutal. With Noah's cast, he was just an infant. He has no memory of it.
Yeah.
But I had to physically hold him down. I would sweat profusely because he was screaming and moving, and to put the cast on, they had to hold his legs perfectly still.
Sucked.
Oh, it was torture. I thought, he's going to hate me. No. Nah, they don't remember.
Yep.
Thankfully.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I'll even say some things like when he was 8. Do you remember that? Nope. So thankfully, I think,
Grace.
yeah,
That's what it
the
is.
grace of God is just allowing them to forget some of the stuff that you want them to forget. They don't forget, the dumb things you did, and
Like driving on the wrong way down Beaver.
they don't forget that. But like my a wise friend always says, if it's not a good time, it's a good story, and that's usually true.
Mm.
I love that.
Not always, but usually.
I don't remember
Next
that
time it
one.
rains every day on your vacation, remember that
It's a
quote.
good
You're gonna need
story.
it. Yeah.
Those are some of the most fun vacations, I feel like.
Ah.
Except when you're at the beach.
No,
Yeah.
they were not. I'm not checking my phone. I'm just seeing if there's any really good question we want to wrap up with.
While you're looking, I was going to say, it's interesting talking to people that are in different phases of parenting in their life. And I would just encourage anyone who is actually listening to this to talk to people who are in different ages. 'Cause I've learned more just sitting here, and it's just good nuggets to hold on to,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah, it's always good. It was always so good for me to have people a few steps ahead of me. Like, what we're dealing with this. How did you handle that? What should we do? I mean, you do figure out a lot of stuff, because even if something worked for somebody else, it might not work for you, or worked for one of your other kids, it might not. But I'll take all the advice and the wisdom from people I respect that I can get on any subject.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any, you mentioned that you read books when you were pregnant, and you're probably going to read more books or listen to books. Are there books that have helped you that you've really liked that you would recommend? Or books that were no, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
I read a lot of books.
I like looking at your Goodreads lists.
Yeah.
I go through them sometimes.
Yeah, there's probably some books in there that I read. I mean, the What to Expect When You're Expecting, I assume that's still around.
Mhm.
That
There
was
is.
so helpful for me.
Was
I got
it really?
I had the app. So
Okay.
like each week it would update with like when I was pregnant, and I would be like, what is it going to do now? And now
Yeah.
and it's nice too, because they still email me with like your X week old baby.
Yeah.
And it'll give, like things to expect and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. I did Baby Wise. I know that was a controversial book at different times. I think they've reissued it. I would say this. Any book you're going to read or any advice you're going to take from a blogger or a website, you have to take that with a grain of salt, because even experts are not perfect and they only know what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And things change, like the allergy thing.
For sure.
You know, science changes and what we know changes and data changes and studies and things. But what I liked about Baby Wise was that it helped me formulate a really good routine, and it gave me information and knowledge about feeding schedules and nap schedules and play schedules. And it made a lot of sense, and largely it worked for my kids. It didn't always work, and there were, adjustments to be made. But I feel like maybe that's the advice, is if you're going to read parenting books, there's so many out there, take them with a grain of salt and recognize that every child is different. Situations can change. And so take the broad good advice.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to throw away what's not going to work for your particular family or situation.
Yeah, just remember, like, you are the expert on your kid,
Oh,
not
well.
anyone else.
Oh, I love that.
We should make t-shirts.
Yeah, I'm the expert.
Yeah, we did
On me.
Baby Wise as well, and I very much appreciate that. Like, both my boys are very good sleepers. Like,
Mhm.
I don't do a 50-minute nighttime routine, even from when they were young to
Yeah.
now. They know when it's bedtime. It's
Yeah.
bedtime.
That is something I hear so often with 2 to 3-year-olds being a nightmare. How did you avoid that? You can answer too if you have an answer to it.
Yeah, it was. I believe it's the eat, play, sleep
Mm-hmm.
cycle. So they're not dependent on food to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a lifelong kind of thing.
Yeah.
I never rocked either of my boys. I don't know if it was just their preference. I don't know if I made a conscious decision, like, I'm not doing this. But like, we would have time and they would snuggle, and then my youngest was always cute because he would just point to his crib when he was ready, and I'd be like, "Good night,
That's awesome.
love you," and then that was it.
I love that. Yeah.
So like, I would sit with him, we'd read books, whatever. And then it was like, he'd give the little cue, and I'm like, all right. But now, as they're older, they know what bedtime is, and when the lights are out, they're not expecting like a 30-minute like
Yeah.
Routine.
and like all this kind of stuff. It's time for
It's
bed.
bedtime. That's
Mhm.
cool.
So
Very similar.
hopefully that's a gift that we gave them.
I think it is a gift. The reason I wanted to do that was because I had babysat a lot when I was younger, and there were some kids who were just nightmares. I
Yeah.
remember this one child. The routine that I had to follow was I had to put on music. He listened to a bedtime CD,
A CD.
and well, I'm old.
No, I meant like
And-
a whole CD.
Oh, and it must have been a tape, maybe, even, because I remember I had to turn it over.
Gosh.
And he had to have his certain stuffed animals, and he had to have a bottle, and he was actually too old for a bottle. And I had to lay in bed with him and rub his back until he went to
What
sleep.
the
And I was
heck?
like, I will never do this with my kids. I did have 1 out of 4 who was a terrible sleeper because I did not follow the Baby Wise with him. I was afraid to let him cry it out because he shared a room, and that was a mistake because the child he shared a room with never woke up when he did cry. At some point, they have to soothe themselves
Yeah,
to sleep.
self-soothing,
It doesn't matter what you do. At some point in life, you have to put yourself to sleep.
Yeah.
The earlier you teach them the right way to do that, the better off everyone is. And so that's the thing. It's a gift to teach your kids how to soothe themselves and to sleep well. And again, that goes back to setting their routine so that they know what to expect, so that the times when it's out of routine, like they get to have a late night because you're going to do movie night as a family and they get to stay up late, like that's a treat. And they get that it's a treat because
Yeah.
every other night they're in bed by whatever, 8 o'clock or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
And plus,
with
when you do stay up late for movie night, you then don't have to extend it another like 40, 50 minutes just to
Yep.
get through the routine and be like, well, I haven't had my 14 items on my checklist. I can't sleep. It's like,
Mhm.
no.
Yeah.
Go to sleep.
That would
Bedtime.
also suck if you and your husband have to like spend the night somewhere else and you need somebody to watch the kids overnight. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
no one's going to do it as perfectly as you do. So shortening the process as much as you can, I think, is just super smart.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Cool.
Well, guys, it's been fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks you
Thanks for doing
guys.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
All right.
Well, I think parenting is a gift. And we all parent somebody, right? Even if you never have kids, I feel like there are plenty of people in life who don't have kids and they still get to parent, nephews and nieces, or they mentor kids. But yeah, it's a gift. I'm very thankful for it.
Mhm.
Yeah. You have a lot of fun ahead of you,
Mhm.
both of you.
Yeah.
I'm
Thanks,
excited
guys.
for you.